This is Swaiba, the Audible African Woman Kenya election series, and we have been documenting how young women experience elections. But as we were doing that, we were not doing this alone. We were also working with community journalists and community radios. And one of our guests works with a community radio, and she's going to introduce herself. But I think we need to realize that as we speak about political and social engineering, community radios are very important in terms of transforming how we think as a people, but also they tend to reach a particular group of people that perhaps mainstream journalism or mainstream media does not do that. And to help us unpack this conversation is Miss Wangeci. Wangeci, you will introduce yourself, tell us a little about yourself,
Yeah.
and we shall delve into the conversation.
Okay. My name is Wangeci,
Yeah.
as you've mentioned. My first name is quite difficult. It's Elishifa, but mostly I'm known by the name Wangeci. I'm a radio presenter and producer working currently with Ghetto Radio. I think in a nutshell, that's my introduction.
Yeah, I feel very odd interviewing you because usually it's you who's usually interviewing me. I hope I do half the job right. But I
Okay.
think for me, the questions I would want us to start with is
Mm.
one, how did you experience reporting elections, but also hearing people, whether they were politicians, but also what were mashinani, in
Mhm.
terms of letting you or letting the politicians know what
Mhm.
issues they wanted to be paid attention. How do you experience it as a young woman, but also as a reporter and a presenter and producer?
I will start by saying the electioneering period in our country is very interesting.
Mm,
Even
mm,
just before the
mm-hmm,
election, there's a lot of anticipation of, how the campaign is going to run, what is going to happen during the campaigns,
mm-hmm,
who are the possible candidates,
mm-hmm.
what is going to happen after the elections. So the conversations basically start even before.
Yeah,
So a
yeah.
few months even before the campaigns really kicked off, the mood, the conversations were up and running. And basically, this year's election period was no different.
Yeah.
So the conversation was still the same. The thing about the electioneering period in Kenya, it brings about a lot of division to start with.
Mm.
So you realize even people in our communities
Communities.
will start divisions.
Yeah.
Which part are you supporting? Which party are you
And why?
supporting? So there's a lot of work to do as journalists to start with.
Just for
Even,
cohesion.
yeah, for
Yeah.
cohesion, because now already people are divided. So even before the campaigns or before the elections,
Mm-hmm.
we already have a task as
Yeah.
journalists.
Yeah.
How do you let people know that this is just a passing wave? Because to some, wengine, especially kwa mtaa zetu, they take it so seriously.
Mm.
Those support. I'm supporting this candidate. I'm supporting this political party. So that is where the work begin.
Mm-hmm.
To
Mm-hmm.
let people understand. It's our mandate, first of all, to let people understand this is just political orientations. Different
Yeah.
leaders
Yeah.
are oriented to different political parties. So as much as down there, we have our favorite because it's normal for you to support this one. It's normal for me to support the other one. So that should not let us, have different interpretations in terms of hate.
Yeah.
So that is where the work begins
Begins.
at the onset of the campaigns.
Yeah.
Now, again, during the campaigns, we go back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How are people, especially because in our communities, you find people don't give equal spaces for people to campaign. You
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
realize if one leader is campaigning in this location, he's not allowed to go in another location
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people still feel this is my stronghold, this is another stronghold. We have another task
Yeah.
to tell people, let people have peaceful campaigns. Don't feel like you're entitled, to bring violence when a different candidate is coming. So in a nutshell, there's a lot of work just from the onset of this campaign.
I think when you say that, I want to hear,
Mm,
because we hear that media positioning for young women or generally women who
mm,
are running or in the governance processes is different.
mm.
Would you say that from where you sit?
When it comes to women, I think they have a lot of challenges,
Mm-hmm.
especially during this campaign. The challenge of women began during the nominations. That's where everything started.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the political parties in Kenya, most of them didn't give women enough or equal chances as compared to the male counterparts. That is something that people felt
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because women, I don't know, there's still these
The
stereotypes of
stereotypes
women,
and what they should do and not
this is
do
what you should do,
and not
women.
do. Yeah.
And even beyond nominations, even campaign funding,
Mm-hmm.
you realize there's a very strong woman somewhere. But even to lure somebody to, finance your
Your
campaign as a
campaigns, yeah,
woman,
it
it
becomes.
was one of the main challenges from my
Mm,
experience, from
mm,
the few women I talked to. They felt the pinch,
yeah,
the pinch. That is from the nomination. When it came to the few who decided, maybe I'm gonna do independent,
yeah,
I'll try and do independent.
yeah. The same
Media,
challenges.
yeah, media presence was key. Then
Mm.
now came the other challenge. Most of the time, it was time to cash in for the media
Oh
industry.
yeah, because
They
placements, media placements are very expensive.
exactly.
Yeah,
So they don't have money.
yeah.
They don't have money.
You know the inequalities that are
Mm,
that we find in what we call
mm,
society. We see
mm,
them replicated
mm-hmm,
in whether it's places platforms like
mm,
radios and that I think for me having spoken to you, I realized that community radios are key in
mm,
terms of just transforming those social norms.
mm,
But now that the elections are 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 done and
mm-hmm,
dusted, and governments are taking off
mm,
in whatever level,
mm-hmm,
are we done as women? Are we done with democratic processes? Are we done as you know?
mm,
So uh, if you were to cover issues, if you were to introduce women
mm,
political leaders,
mm,
or generally
mm.
just political leaders, what gender issues are you speaking about?
Mm. I think first of all, we are not done. If there's a time as women should be very vocal is right now,
Mm.
because most of the time, even these spaces, even the cabinet secretaries, the spaces they have been given, we already they didn't meet the threshold of what
Of
we
the
were
two,
promised
yes,
during
the
the
50%,
campaign. So
yes.
I think what we should be doing right now is fighting for our spaces that we have been denied in all these spaces. How then do we ensure our voices are heard? I think right now, what as community journalists we should be doing is actually making it so intentional to have more conversations about women, and also how do they fight for their spaces? How do we fight for these spaces that are being denied to us? So I think even after the election, the conversation are still continuing.
Mm-hmm.
We are not ending the
Mm-hmm.
conversations right now. We should amplify our voices together as women. So you find that even after election, conversation do slide. Like
Yeah, slide
people,
off and
yeah,
people tend
people
to
don't want to
forget.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Then we'll start talking about them 5 years ago. From
Later.
now,
Yeah.
later,
Yeah.
how do you ensure 5 years from now we have more women stepping into these positions? How do we ensure a strong woman is vying for the presidency? How
Mm.
do we
We
start?
have to make sure the
Exactly.
momentum stays.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
we should be pitching for all these to ensure all these strong women. How do we address all these issues that have been raised by women who are vying for these political seats? For the first time I've had them talk, the issues they have been going through.
Through. Yeah,
How
it's
do
true.
we
It's true.
exactly? So how do we ensure 5 years from now
We're not talking about the
we are
same
not talking
issues. You've
about
got the
these
same
issues? So
issues.
I don't think this conversation is supposed to end at this point.
Yeah.
Mm,
When you talk about women issues and how amplifying and
mm,
also making sure that we are holding societies, because we also I think one of the beauty of community journalists is that
mm,
you also hold communities accountable,
mm-hmm,
because it's almost like community radios are owned by communities,
mm,
and so the conversations go both ways. Well, mainstream,
mm,
it just hierarchical.
mm.
So I don't want to use this word because I feel like we've overused it today, and
Yeah.
it might lose meaning. But
Mm,
what's the role of community radios
mm-hmm,
or community journalists
mm,
per se
mm,
in making sure that one, young
mm,
women are not left behind in governance processes, but
mm,
also because most community journalists deal with a specific low income area
mm,
communities, and
mm,
sometimes language is a problem. So
mm,
and maybe that would center into terms of the work you do in terms of
mm,
even the use of Sheng, but
mm,
also coming out or running away from scholar,
mm,
or
mm,
NGO.
mhm,
Please
mm.
expound on that
I
language.
think some of these things have been made look like they're for the high end people.
Mm,
So
mm,
you realize people don't want to take part in any conversation when it comes to governance, when it comes to public participation.
mm,
But I think where we stand right now, we are trying to reach to the common Wananchi and tell them this is our country at the end of the day. But how are we doing it? We're using the very niche, the language that gets to them, the language
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
them feel, Manze, this is our country. We
yeah.
don't take part in this, then we are selling our country. So I think the very first thing that is helping us as a community station to achieve in terms of allowing people to participate, issues of government participation and others, is the language we're using.
Yeah.
Even the interviewers, we make it very intentional. We are bringing somebody.
I know,
Yeah, we are
I know.
bringing somebody who will not make it sound like rocket science again.
I hear you. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been to a station, and yes,
So yeah,
accessibility is how you roll.
yeah,
Yeah.
how are you breaking down this information to layman's language
Mm-hmm.
so that they understand? I think we try and use the simplest language, like you explain it to somebody who's never gone to school. I think that's how we, in our minds, we are like, you know what? I am talking to somebody who doesn't even know how public participation starts, how we,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we are talking to people who just hear of decisions
But
have
also
been
people
made.
who do not have time, in terms
Exactly.
of the luxury of time of sitting down with large documents like manuals, as we spoke with Miss
Yeah,
Jen. Yeah,
yeah. So I think
yeah,
that language has been our main key
yeah,
as we address our community down there.
yeah. What are your hopes in the next, or how do you see? Maybe before I ask your personal voice, what is the way forward for community journalists in terms of mainstream? Not because I feel like when we talk about public trust, one of the things that has caused public trust is how mainstream media has been used to redirect, narratives, and therefore it has moved away from Wananchi. Now the future looks like it's community journalism. Why? Is because technology has also allowed us to, use our phones, but also have a voice. So how what's the future of community journalists, but also radio stations like yours and others in terms of integrating uh, proper narratives around governance?
I think mainstream, I'm sorry to say mainstream, as you have mentioned, we saw some being affiliated to other parties or different leaders and all that stuff. But I think our role as community radio is to be very free and in terms of disseminating information. We should be the very first people the community, the first of all, the community already relates to us closely because they feel like we are really part of them. So I don't
That's
think
the
it
essence. Community radios. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So I don't think there should be time where people don't feel like they can trust a community radio station, because if they lose that, then we are losing it as the role of us as the community stations. So we should stick to our mandate, which is informing people the right information. Let's not lean with, depending on political affiliations, interest, and all that. Because if we do that, we are losing it. But if we continue with our mandate to inform, neutral, very neutral. I
Neutral
think
around
neutral
issues.
is the name, yeah.
Yeah,
Neutral in terms of how we disseminate the information, then we are going to go far.
yeah. I don't. I would. I want to ask this question, but I'm not asking this question as someone who works for a particular radio
Yeah.
station. It's as I'm asking this question as a community journalist. What are perhaps the three issues in terms of priority? What do you think are the first three issues in terms of governance priority in the communities that you serve or the communities that listen to you?
The first,
The three priorities in terms of governance processes. Yeah.
I think the very first one is voter apathy. Am I on the right track?
Yeah. No, as
When you
in,
talk about,
so I'm asking, so because we said you listen to communities and communities tend to trust community radios or community stations. After the elections, what are you hearing from the people in terms of articulating their governance concerns?
I think the very first thing I have heard about is issues about integrity.
Integrity,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
When
okay,
you
yeah.
You can never talk about governance and
And
leave
not talk about
the
integrity.
issue of integrity. And even after the election, the first thing we saw was the CSs being nominated. So the
Mm,
conversations right now in terms of leadership and governance is integrity. The other thing people are talking about, the manifestos.
mm,
is still on people's mind.
Yeah, following
It's
up in
very
terms of you said you could do
exactly
this. Yeah,
because
so
you
accountability.
are our leader. You promised all of these things. So the other thing that is in people's mind at the moment is manifestos.
Yeah.
What did you tell us? What did you tell us you're going to do in the first 20 days?
Are there specific concerns in terms of also they said in the first 20 days, like someone mentioned about the hustler fund, and then realizing, oh, this is gonna be a loan. So are there specific nuances that are coming out?
I think the very first one that is the cost of living. And people really felt immediately after the government took over, things became tougher.
Yeah.
Tougher. So the
Yeah.
conversations are still there. Oh, you told us life is going to become easy, but as you can see, it's tough.
Yeah.
You promised to talk about CBC reforms. What are you
Yeah,
talking about right
yes,
now?
yes. In the morning we were talking about the privatization of education in informal settlements,
Yeah,
in informal low-income areas.
And I think even when we talk about CBC, I think today they mentioned people have a few days for public participation. So how do we ensure also our people get involved? Understand
But
the
also
importance.
even today, if you ask me to go to a public participation forum on education, I have no idea where to start. Right? Because the thing is, how much do we know about the CBC process?
Yeah.
Like how educated are we? Because as we were saying earlier, numbers won't matter.
Yeah.
Right? Like you need to be able to say on this clause or in this, So I feel like work on you in terms of, I don't know whether you have to be an expert in everything or maybe
But I think it's interesting that people are raising these concerns because
yes,
normally you
yeah,
realize after election people just go,
disappear.
but the fact that now they are questioning. They are
Yeah,
questioning, you told us this,
yeah,
then what is happening? You told us this, what is happening? You told us you're going to work on CBC, it's been 100 days. What is going on? This just means people are getting interested. We are not where we are supposed to be, but we a step. The fact that
yes, there's
people are
momentum building.
exactly,
Yeah, it'll be
exactly.
interesting to hear what comes out of. And in terms of, I would love if we ask a question like who actually participated in the public participation on CBC, just to hear. Like, but they just what was the experience? Was it a rubber stamping experience? Was it real? And what are the lessons to learn from that?
I think where we are right now, if I'm not wrong, in the course of this week is when they have given people a chance for public participation. But the question is, where are they going? How do they participate and all that?
What are
So
the
that
logistics?
I think that is the information people rarely get.
Okay.
Because when you're even having conversation about public participation, people will tell you, we had there was public participation, but
So
then
it's a notice that is served,
yeah, we
but
had,
whether
but we
it's
didn't
seen through or
know.
not.
We don't know where we were supposed to go. We don't know where the conversations were taking place. So I
Yeah.
think also as a community journalist, we need to, be ready to gather all these informations
Information.
so that the
Yeah.
next time people talk about CBC has been changed or what, they will say, by the way, Get already told us, or whoever told us this is where we are going to give our views and our opinions so that people don't feel left out in terms of decision makings and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a task.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any other questions for you, other than that, what your aspirations in terms of, I mean, if you were to throw, I mean, because journalists are also prophets in their own communities. What you feel for the next 5 years in terms of, you as a person, but also your aspirations in terms of the things that you want done. Or you've spoken about public participation having a different change, a different angle in terms of people actually actively participating. But you as a community journalist, and not as Wangeci,
In the
how do you
next 5 years,
see, yes, integration of governance processes and what you do as a community journalist?
I think I'm hopeful. First of all,
Yeah.
I feel like I am so hopeful. I would tell you this electioneering period has been very eye-opening. Especially, I think this is the very first time I was very actively involved in terms of from the beginning up to the end,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
was happening. And the fact that I saw people, not just the elite people, the Mama Mboga down there was very interested. We went to the ground right there to, give people a chance to meet their candidates.
And
It
also
was very
ask them.
interesting to see people come for forums for free, which is not normal.
Oh, that's true.
Hey,
Yes. Yeah, people
you
came
have
in
to give
busloads.
them something, but to
Yeah.
just go for a
Yeah.
forum with your candidate and see people showing up, it just shows you people, we are not voting in terms of parties. We are really voting for people who we see are going to go to those positions and help us. So I'm very hopeful and I'm happy that people are very interested. So I'm hoping in the next 5 years, I'm going to see so many women, number one. I'm going to see so many youth voting because now they understand the importance. And I'm hoping the issue of voter apathy is going to, really go down because it was an issue that has been there over and over again. But I'm hopeful in the next 5 years, it's going to be something of the past, though it's hard to end it completely. But the numbers of people who are going to vote and showing up will be very high.
Well, as Wangeci has said, voter apathy is real, but public participation looks like it could cure what we are feeling as voter apathy. And it's that not that Kenyans are not just jaded. It's because there's a gap between, what they actually want for their lives, but also what happens in governance processes. Community journalists, we cannot over insist. Community journalism is a way of getting or breaking down governance processes for people, especially people in the peripheries. And we will be hearing more from Wangeshi and what she's been doing, as we will have her back for sure. Especially because I feel like the conversation about where and how is where organizations like Usawa would find synergy in terms of gathering the information, but also
Yeah.
packaging it, but also disseminating it to strategic partners like you because you have a better reach. And
Yeah.
not because not every time we do a podcast.
True.
Well, it has been an amazing and enlightening episode with Wangeshi. Well, this has been the Audible African Woman Kenya election series where we've been documenting how young women experience elections. And we've had a lot of things from SGBV, but also the young women actually holding the government accountable in terms of, their manifestos, but also the role of community journalists, as we just ended this episode with Wangeshi, in terms of what is the role of community journalists in breaking down the information so that it's reachable to young women, but also larger communities. And how do we transform the gender social norms that are still holding women, young women, and youth out of government processes? We are very thankful for your feedback and that you have journeyed with us on this season. We hope to see you, and please engage us